Good evening and welcome to the National News Broadcast. I'm Stefan Dialwis.
A very good evening to you, and I'm Sharika Tahir. Let's take a look at the headlines.
President presides over the second high-level roundtable discussion on crisis to recovery. Cabinet approval to increase government service salaries. Proposal to restructure the electricity board presented to the Cabinet. Decision to increase the value-added tax up to 18% from January 1st. Tenders called for the restructuring of Sri Lankan Airlines. Petition challenging the parliamentary seat of State Minister Diana Gamage dismissed. Israel military continues to launch ground-level attacks to the Gaza Strip. Medal-winning Sri Lankan athletes at the 2023 Asian Para Games return to the country. Let's take a look at the local news now in more detail.
Marking a significant momentum of the economic recovery and stabilization, the second high-level roundtable discussion on crisis to recovery was held today in Colombo. The event was presided over by President Ranil Wickremesinghe. The event follows the previous session in December 2022 and provides a forum to discuss the progress of the government's reform programs aimed at addressing key economic and structural issues. International development partners including International Monetary Fund, World Bank, Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency, Asian Development Bank, Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, Japan International Cooperation Agency, United States Agency for International Development, the European Union, the United Nations and private sector development partners were present at the discussion. It also focuses on transitioning from crisis recovery to a sustainable growth path, challenges and opportunities for attracting investment, promoting private capital mobilization, creating jobs and maintaining commitments by the government. It further focuses on committing participating partners towards Sri Lanka's greener, resilient and inclusive development. During the previous session in December last year, representatives from the World Bank, Asian Development Bank, International Monetary Fund and Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank emphasized that a coordinated assistance program supported by the multilateral financial institutions is required for Sri Lanka to recover from the economic crisis currently facing the country. The Sri Lankan economy has shown initial signs of stabilization with moderating inflation, easing foreign exchange liquidity pressures and certain progress on debt restructuring, including the approval of the domestic debt restructuring strategy. Under the government of Sri Lanka's reform program, underpinned by the IMF Extended Fund Facility and supported by other development partners, cornerstone legislation is being developed and structural reforms are being implemented to restore stability and regain access to international financial markets. However, the path to recovery remains narrow with limited fiscal and external buffers. Moving forward, a rapid and sufficiently deep external debt restructuring as well as the continued implementation of macro fiscal and structural reforms that improve economic governance, enhance competitiveness and protect the poor and vulnerable remain essential for regaining a sustainable growth path. The session was opened by the President Ranil Wickremesinghe. He delivered an address on the growth and strategic directions for Sri Lanka as it moves from recovery to a sustainable growth path. The President also made firm commitments for the government to work hand in hand with the private sector to unlock key investments in new and existing economic sectors moving forward. To strengthen delivery, the government has plans to set up a presidential delivery unit, conduct economic labs with the private sector and hold on open days to communicate outcomes to the public of what has seen, achieved and delivered. Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe, highlighted the progress on debt restructuring made by the Sri Lankan government.
The government has decided to increase the government service salaries in the next budget considering the soaring cost of living. The relevant proposal in this regard was presented to the Cabinet yesterday by President Ranil Wickremesinghe. Cabinet spokesman Minister Bandula Gunawardena made remarks over the decision at the media briefing held to announce the Cabinet decisions today. Minister Bandula Gunawardena said that when the President presented the budget last year, a massive pressure was mounted on electricity, domestic gas and fuel. He said that the President then mentioned in the budget to provide relief for the state sector employees. Accordingly, the Minister said that despite the challenging situation at present, salaries of the state service will be increased from this year's budget. He added that the Cabinet of Ministers extended their unanimous support in this regard. He said that the rising cost of living has affected the state sector employees in a severely negative manner. Accordingly, the Minister said that measures will be taken to increase the salaries at least by reducing capital expenditures. The overall tax income of the government in the year 2022 was 1,751 billion rupees, out of which 1,265 billion rupees worth provisions had been spent on the payment of salaries and pensions. The cost pertaining to the payment of Samurdhi and other reliefs was around 506 billion rupees. The total of these two expenditures amount to 1,771 billion rupees. In addition, the government has settled 1,565 billion rupees as interest payments for state loans. A total of 715 billion rupees has been spent as capital expenditures. The overall income earned in the previous year was at 1,979 billion rupees. However, the recurrent and capital costs have increased up to 4,472 billion rupees. Minister Bandula Gunawardena pointed out that the deficit of 2,493 billion rupees was settled through locally acquired loans. Minister Gunawardena said that the government is unable to obtain foreign loans until the restructuring process is completed and instruct the central bank to print money in order to suffice the fund requirements. However, he said that the Treasury has to find ways to fulfill the deficit, which would in return affect the public. He pointed out that the government has no other alternatives than to impose taxes on the increased salaries. He said that this issue has to be debated in the parliament since the legislature holds the power of finances under the 148th section of the Constitution. Minister Bandula Gunawardena said that the Cabinet of Ministers decided to increase the rate of value-added tax up to 18% from January 1st next year, as agreed with the International Monetary Fund. The Minister said that the Cabinet of Ministers granted approval to increase the value-added tax rate up to 18% with effect from January 1st and impose a tax on certain goods and services to which the value-added tax is not yet applicable. He also said that the new tax proposals will also be implemented from January 1st. The proposal to restructure the Electricity Board has been presented to the Cabinet.
Minister Kanchana Vijayasekara said that the cabinet decision will be granted after scrutinizing the proposal for another 2 weeks. The minister made remarks over the electricity tariff hike during a media briefing held at the Ministry of Power and Energy today. Minister Kanchana Vijayasekara said that several proposals have been introduced. Accordingly, hydropower plants as well as the system control will be completely under the control of the government. He said that they will not proceed with any new recruitments. He added that the payment of bonuses has been stopped since last year. The minister emphasized on the influence of the trade unions on the CEB. One of the demands they achieved was to increase salaries of all employees every 3 years by 25%. However, he said that as a subject minister, he opposed the decision and took steps to suspend the granting of salary increments. He pointed out that some trade unions are intending to resume the salary increment and bonus payment procedures in the guise of public protests instead of discussing about the restructuring process or the increasing tariffs. He said that the public received an uninterrupted supply of electricity from February to July under the tariff revisions. He added that in July they reduced the rates by 14%, yet had to be increased again by 18%. Accordingly, he pointed out that the tariffs were increased only by 4%.
Minister Nimal Siripala De Silva says bids have been called up for the restructuring of the Sri Lankan Airlines. The minister mentioned that the relevant tender notices have been published in local and international newspapers and websites. Minister Nimal Siripala De Silva said that the notices have been published in both local and international popular media outlets and websites calling for bids in order to proceed with the restructuring process in a transparent manner. He said that a 45-day period has been granted for those who with an interest to place their bids. Following an evaluation process, he said that bidders whom are suitable for the Sri Lankan Airlines and its staff will be taken on board as a potential investor.
The Court of Appeal today dismissed a petition filed challenging the parliamentary seat of State Minister Diana Gamage based on a majority decision. The petition was taken up before a three-member appeal court judge panel of Chairman of the Appellate Court, Justice Nishanka Bandula Karunaratne, Justice Kema Swarnadipati and Justice A. Marikar. Declaring the majority decision, the judge panel, Justice Nishanka Bandula Karunaratne, said that adequate evidence should be produced in order for the court to make a sound decision pertaining to the filed petition. The relevant petition was filed by social activist Oshala Herat. In the meantime, Turkish embassy in Sri Lanka celebrated the 100th anniversary of the Turkish Republic with enthusiasm, expressing gratitude and paying tribute to its founding leader, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. To mark the centennial of the Republic of Turkey, the embassy hosted an event in Colombo yesterday. The event brought together individuals from diverse backgrounds. Turkish Republic Day is being celebrated since October 29, 1925, when Mustafa Kemal Atatürk formally announced the new Republic of Turkey after the fall of the Ottoman Empire and the War of Independence led by the late leader. Subsequently, Atatürk was elected as the first president of Turkey. Minister Vidyadhar Rajapaksa was the chief guest of the event, which was held under the patronage of Turkish ambassador to Sri Lanka, Demet Seker Gioglu.
Today, Turkey is counted among G20 countries, emerges as the second largest army of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, has built a strong national defense industry, steadily becomes an energy hub, provides shelter to millions fleeing war-affected regions, while consolidating her strategic location around the world. Turkey, through her Asia New initiative, also looks forward to strengthening her cooperation with Asian countries, many of which she has historical ties with. So 2023 is not just a year individually important for Turkey and Sri Lanka, as we respectively celebrate the centenary of the Republic of Turkey and the 75th anniversary of the independence of Sri Lanka. It is also an important milestone in our bilateral relations. Indeed, 2023 also marks the 10th anniversary of the establishment of our embassy here in Colombo and the 10th anniversary of the launch of the national flag carriers. Turkish Airlines flies between Istanbul and Colombo via a stopover in Malé.
Both our Sri Lanka embassy in Turkey and the Turkey embassy in Colombo have planned a series of events to celebrate this long-standing partnership between two countries. The first formal session of bilateral political consultation between Sri Lanka and Turkey, convened in 2019 in Colombo, paved the way for a new roadmap to elevate our cooperation in prioritized sectors. We are looking forward to holding our second round of political consultations, which would further consolidate our existing ties. The exchange of our regular visits between Sri Lanka and Turkey in recent past has been significant and added a new impetus to our cooperation, including the high-level visit of Turkish Foreign Minister to Sri Lanka in January 22 and the visit of delegation from Turkey Development and Cooperation Agency to Sri Lanka in April 2023, initiate technical assistance and capacity building cooperation in Sri Lanka. We invite Turkish investors to explore Sri Lanka's investment opportunities, especially in the pharmaceutical sector. Sri Lanka can learn much from Turkey's experiences in strengthening its economy, in particular attracting foreign direct investments and encouraging foreign companies to set up business.
This is also the time for us to share with you our deep sorrow and concerns over the current conflicts in the Middle East and the future of the people of Palestine in particular. As you know, internationally, Sri Lanka has always been with your people on matters of peace and progress in the past. The relations between Turkey and Sri Lanka are developing with a positive agenda. With gratitude, I must take this opportunity to place on record our appreciation for the work of Turkish cooperation and coordination agencies projects, including the 100 House project, which is estimated to be around $3 million. In 2018, TICA provided equipment and construction support to the Ampar Irrigation Dam project run by the NGO Child Rehabilitation Center. The project will provide irrigation to 8,100 acres and will benefit up to 15,000 people. Furthermore, Sri Lanka has received aid and assistance from Turkey in many occasions of our national needs. Our two countries recently signed a double taxation avoidance agreement which will enable the two countries to make their economic relations go further. There is much to work on together in the spheres of international economic, technological, educational and health spheres.
Senior consultant physician Dr. Ananda Vijayavikrama has been appointed as the new chairman of the National Medicines Regulatory Authority. The relevant appointment was made by Minister Dr. Ramesh Pathirana. Dr. Ananda Vijayavikrama, joining the state service in 1992, became a specialist in the year 2000. He is currently working as a senior physician to the National Centre for Infectious Diseases. Minister Dr. Ramesh Pathirana said that trust on the national health system should be instilled among the people of the country. He made these remarks during a discussion held at the Health Ministry today with government medical officials. The minister emphasized that relevant decisions to improve the health sector within a proper vision and methodology should be taken without any hesitation. Discussions were also held on salaries of physicians, transport allowances, training, promotions and many other related issues.
Minister Vidyadasa Rajapaksa says a code of ethics related to public representatives will be presented to the Parliament and will propose to appoint a committee to oversee the relevant affairs. The minister made these remarks during a media briefing held today to brief on the upcoming proposed bill in this regard. Minister Vidyadasa Rajapaksa said that the Anti-Corruption Act has come to effect from September 15th, and accordingly he said that they are expecting to propose a code of conduct for public representatives in the Parliament. Accordingly, he said that the committee in this regard will be led by retired Supreme Court or Appeal Court judges. He added that the amendments to the election law were introduced in a cabinet paper. The minister said that within the next 2 weeks, discussions will be held with the party leaders regarding the cabinet paper and submit for cabinet approval.
Brother of Adarsha Karandana, who made an allegation against former parliamentarian Ashu Marasinghe, has lodged a complaint with the Criminal Investigation Department. In the complaint, he has alleged that his sister has made false allegations against the former parliamentarian. An individual named Adarsha Karandana made several allegations, including a video recording against former parliamentarian Ashu Marasinghe through social media recently. The Criminal Investigation Department is conducting an investigation over this controversial incident. The brother of the relevant individual arrived at the CID today to inquire into the progress made over the charges filed against his sister.
Tourism Promotion Bureau says the tourism industry has shown a growth of 275% in the last month. These remarks were shared during a media briefing held to inform the future targets of the tourism sector.
We had to look at our businesses, and then the first target was to go to our next door neighbor, which is India. We did a road show. We did 3 road shows in India, and then we slowly started taking part in other international events like WTM, ITB, and other projects like in Fitur in Spain and all that, because it was a conditioning of the mind. What you have to understand is you can't compare ourselves with other competing markets like Vietnam, Cambodia, Malaysia and all that, because yes, they had a COVID crisis, but they did not have an economic crisis like ours, because it was a black mark that was created due to the unrest in Sri Lanka from a tourism perspective. That I want to be very clear. And last year we ended up with 700,000 tourists, but the achievement, it's just that I want to go on record very clearly to say that we are not bringing goods into this country. We are not bringing products. We are not trying to bring milk or biscuits for that matter. We have to bring people, humans, and to set their mindset is not an easy task. What they see on TV, what they read on social media or newspapers matter a lot when you have to bring people. And as you know, especially in European countries, the travel advisories were quite high. They took it up at to another level because of the situation in Sri Lanka in April, May, June, July. But if you now look at the advisory, especially in Europe and in US and other countries, it has come down 2 pegs or so. That was a great achievement as well, to show that the country is back to normalcy. You know, we were almost 5.5 feet under, but now from a tourism perspective, we are doing very well, and we have crossed the $1 billion mark as well, according to the central bank in terms of revenue. Now, I think we have taken the second place because, as you know, the apparel industry also going through a bit of a crisis. There was, I think, to my knowledge, a 20% drop in apparel as well. So now we have, I'm not saying that's a great, we want the apparel industry to also succeed because that's being direct forex revenue for us. But this is industry that we can, you know, achieve our targets very successfully if we keep our image in the right focus and the right place.
Well, that's it on local news, and we'll be back with news overseas.
Welcome back. A quick look at foreign news. Now, Israel says there were large exchanges with Hamas in Gaza overnight as its ground offensive continues.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu rejected calls for a ceasefire in Gaza. Meanwhile, the Israeli Defense Forces says its forces were attacked by Hamas terrorists with anti-tank missiles and machine gun fire. Airstrikes on the Gaza Strip also continued overnight. Israel Armed Forces says more than 300 targets were hit in total. It further said that its military is focusing on northern Gaza but continues to strike all parts of the Strip. Hamas says it ambushed 3 Israeli vehicles with anti-tank missiles and attacked ground troops with shells in southern Gaza. The Hamas-run Health Ministry in Gaza says more than 8,500 people have been killed since Israel's retaliatory bombing began. Houthi fighters from Yemen were responsible for attacking Israel with drones earlier today, the leader of the Iranian-backed group has told the foreign media. The UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees says 64 of its staff have now been killed in Gaza during the Israel-Hamas war. The agency further stated that 450 shelters they manage across the Gaza Strip are becoming overcrowded, with 670,000 people staying in UN facilities in total.
A gunman who barricaded himself in a Japan post office for several hours with hostages has been arrested. 2 women were taken captive by the suspect in the city of Warabi today. Japanese media reported that one was later released while the second was freed after police rushed in and detained the suspect. Both the women are said to be unharmed. The motive for the attack is unclear. The gunman, who is reportedly in his 80s, is thought to have also been involved in a shooting at the nearby Todo Chua General Hospital earlier in the day. 2 people identified as a doctor and an elderly patient were wounded in the attack. Their injuries are not thought to be life-threatening.
A new report says human fossil fuel emissions are threatening a key climate threshold more quickly than previously thought. Researchers say the world may be committed to breaching the 1.5 Celsius limit by 2029 rather than the mid-2030s. Researchers say record average emissions of carbon dioxide over the past 3 years are a key factor after a year of unprecedented heat, with world's hottest month recorded in July. Temperatures for 2023 as a whole are expected to be close to 1.5 Celsius above the pre-industrial level before the world first started heavily using coal, oil and gas around 1850. Scientists say that increasing levels of carbon dioxide and other gases in the atmosphere raise temperatures because they trap in the Earth's radiation, creating a greenhouse effect. The 1.5 Celsius figure is seen as particularly important for developing states and small island nations who fear that going beyond this level of warming would see the oceans rise to swallow their homes.
Sri Lankan athletes who won medals at the Asian Para Games arrived in the country last night. They received a warm welcome at the airport.
State Minister Rohana Dissanayake, Sports Ministry officials, Sri Lanka Paralympic Committee members, parents of the athletes were present at the airport to welcome the medal-winning athletes. Nuwana Indika and Pradeep Somasiri won gold medals at this year's Asian Para Games. Nuwana Indika also won a silver medal for Sri Lanka, and other athletes who won silver medals are Samita Dulan, Anil Prasanna, Janani Dhananjana and Galini Basnayaka. Athletes Palita Bandara Kumudu Priyanka, Madhuranga Subasinghe and Navid Rabin secured bronze medals at the Games.
Sri Lankan legendary cricket fan Percy Abeysekera has bid adieu to the nation. He was known among the cricketers and cricket fans across the world as Uncle Percy.
Born on July 30th in 1936, late Percy Abeysekera was 87 years of age at his demise. Late Percy Abeysekera, who was passionate towards cricket since his schooling days, began to cheer for the Sri Lankan cricketers with the national flag in hand since 1979. Thereon, late Percy Abeysekera continued to cheer and back the Sri Lankan cricket team for over 44 years. Uncle Percy visiting stadiums across the world to cheer for the Sri Lankan cricketers was a common sight for the cricketing fans. Late Percy Abeysekera, who was suffering from an illness, passed away yesterday at the Ragama Teaching Hospital. Pakistan secured an important victory against Bangladesh in the ICC Men's Cricket World Cup match today. The match was played in Eden Gardens, Kolkata. Winning the toss, Bangladesh opted to bat first. Accordingly, Bangladesh was restricted to a score of 204 runs by the Pakistani speedsters. Mahmudullah scored 56 runs while Liton Das scored 45. Shaheen Shah Afridi and Mohammad Wasim picked up 3 wickets each.
Quietly happy, but they're not over the moon, of course. Good to see Mickey Arthur, a big smile on his face, and Pakistan managed to win this with big margin, with 7 wickets in hand, and still they've still got to wait for the other results and play well further up. Bangladesh, they did try their best. It wasn't
with a victory target of 205 runs, Pakistan was able to chase down the target in only 32 overs. Fakhar Zaman scored 81 runs while Abdullah Shafiq scored 68. For Bangladesh, Mehdi Hassan Miraz picked up only 3 wickets for the Pakistani innings. Fakhar Zaman was named man of the match.
Game easily, and they did it very nicely too.
That's it for the news this evening.